Hello and welcome to another one of my Jon Gaunt meets in the Jon Gaunt podcast series. Today, a man who I've interviewed so many times, I probably know him better than my wife. I think I probably get on better with him than my wife as well, to be honest. And his predecessor, Lord Green. Of course, I'm talking about Alp Mehmet, who is the main honcho of Migration Watch. And he joins me now. Hi, Alp.
Hello, John. Good to be back in touch.
Yeah, great to have you on board. Thank you very much indeed. Today, the headlines are screaming 50-odd thousand people have got into our country illegally since Keir Starmer came to power. Where is he going wrong? What is he and Yvette Cooper doing wrong? Or has he just inherited a total basket case?
Where are they going right, I think, would be the better question to ask, because having said to us that when they were campaigning for the election last year, that they would sort it out like that, they would come in like Batman and Robin, really, to address every single immigration issue, and they will solve the whole problem overnight. Well, it's turned out, for those who can remember, people like Abbott and Costello, frankly, is more appropriate to the sort of performance that we've had from them. They've been very frustrating. First of all, Starmer, as a lawyer, knew exactly what the legal position was.
Of course.
Yvette Cooper, she was very experienced. She was the chair of the Home Affairs Committee for years.
Yeah.
So they knew exactly what the problem was. And yet they came in and they were either misled, deluded, or were lying. Because what has happened, and what the milestone that we reached yesterday, the day before, that was inevitable. It was always going to happen. And the reason is that since this government came into office, they've done absolutely nothing that would act in any way to deter those coming here.
So are you saying then we needed Rwanda or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And Rwanda wasn't a silver bullet, but certainly it was one of the it was one of the measures that was going to help send out the right messages. It was foolish of the government to scrap it the day they came into office almost. They said, no, rubbish. But more importantly, it was the legislation and what the previous government had put in place with regards to dealing with the illegal boats.
Yeah.
And that, doing away with that as well, that in itself was, it was either the white flag of surrender, or it was the flag inviting migrants to come in, inviting the smugglers and the traffickers to keep going.
So did they lie to us then in the election? Do you think they never had any reason or any desire to stop this mass illegal, what a lot of people are calling now an invasion? Were they really in favour of it but couldn't say it?
I find it difficult to believe that they actually wanted it to continue.
But it is continuing. Keir Starmer's not stupid. He could stop it overnight. You put the troops on the beach, you leave the ECHR, and you put the Navy in the Channel, don't you?
Yeah. I think
close hotels.
The middle bit you said, leaving the ECHR, that has clearly become an absolutely essential element of in any way being able to send out the right messages, in being able to send people back or to move them without them having the right of appeal. I mean, this is what it is at the moment. It's the traffickers and the migrants and the activist lawyers, they're doing what is possible for them. They're doing what is actually in the law and allows them to do. And Starmer will have known that. He will have known that, and he will have known from advice coming from the experts in the Home Office that most certainly they will not be able to stop them coming in by simply saying we're going to act tough.
Okay, so if that's the case, Alp, and he did know, why hasn't he solved it? Why hasn't he done something? He said he was going to smash the, I can't remember if it was him or Rishi, smash the gangs. I mean, he couldn't smash his avocado on toast, could he? The man's a wimp. He's got to stand up and say, he's got to do what Trump basically said yesterday. He's going to do in Washington, D.C., clean up London, clean up Washington, then clean up the rest of the country. And when it comes to migration, Trump's reduced it by 95% on the southern border.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, what has a lot to do with it is Starmer's desire to cuddle up to the EU.
Right, go on.
When Macron came here a few weeks ago and they struck up this deal, well, that had a lot more to do with showing, how wonderful we think the EU is and how we really want to be best buddies with them again. And
Sure.
Macron ran rings around Starmer.
Yes.
The deal, this absurd deal, one in, one out, which is more like 1,000 in and very few, if any, out, is really more appropriately labelled, I think.
Yeah.
That deal, when you look at it, when you look at the detail, it's nonsense. Apart from which, if it does work, we're going to pay a hell of a lot. The French, all they're going to do is replace some people who are already there with those that we're sending them. We're not actually reducing the numbers,
No.
even if it were to work. If we were to send 50 a week, the 50,000 that I reckon are that we know about are going to come across in boats this year, that will take something like 20 years to clear. This year alone, it's rubbish. It's taking us for fools.
Okay, so Starmer, we've agreed, isn't thick, but is Starmer and Yvette Cooper treating us, the British public, as if we're think? Because how do they possibly think in the multi-streaming, multi-network broadcast world that we're living in today, they'd get away with a scheme that is patently ridiculous? One in, one out. And most people in Britain would like 50,000 out, or lots of people would like all of them out. So it's just nonsense. Why has he done it? I just don't get it.
I think what he's doing is acknowledging the fact that as things are, as the law stands, as the measures that are in place stand, there is very little likelihood of anyone being stopped, frankly, or anyone going back. They're going to continue to come. So what he does is come up with a wheeze that is going to, it implies that the solution is there. It will just take a little time to work. And that, so there's a border security command that has now been put in place. Well, yeah, and they say, oh, well, it takes time to train people. It takes time to change the arrangements really for dealing with these people. Rubbish. They know full well that it's not going to work.
And also,
And this is just an example, John. Going back to the beginning of the year when they introduced their border security, asylum and immigration bill, that bill was supposed to put in place new arrangements that would enable the government to tackle illegal migration as though it were sort of terrorist activity, terrorist actions.
yeah,
That bill is totally meaningless. It's vacuous. It will, and I said in February, in fact, I gave evidence to the bill committee, one of these bills that scrutinizes the bill in committee, having gone through the floor of the House. I said that the bill as proposed will do nothing to dissuade, will do nothing to stop people coming, to deter them. If anything, it's going to encourage them actually to come, which is precisely what's happened. And do you know, Angela Eagle, the minister responsible, she was on the committee and she said she didn't want to discuss this. She said to me, what do you mean by indigenous on your website? I mean, I kid you not. All she was concerned about was deflecting from the question.
Let's go back to what you said also about Macron and Starmer cozying up to each other. If Starmer's, is this somehow a kind of Brexit revenge trick he's playing on us? Does he want us back in the EU, either by hook or by crook or by the back door? So as a result of that, he's not going to put forward anything like I just suggested, army on the beach, navy in the channel, and get out of the ECHR. He's just not going to go there, is he?
No, certainly not. No, and there's no intention. In fact, both he and Lord Hermer, the Attorney General, they have both said that there's no question of leaving the ECHR. They've said that. And that they will always abide by what the European court will, and this is not an EU court, I remind people, but this is not something that this government will ever do, resolve from the ECHR and come out of the Council of Europe. They're not going to do it.
Can we solve it without that, though, Alp? In your opinion?
In my opinion, no. And there are lots of people, I mean, we've been saying it for some time, but there are lots of people now, Lord Sumption, for goodness sake, someone who has never been an immigration restrictionist or a skeptic by any means. I mean, he's a good man, I have to say. And he's come up and said it. And now politician after politician, and not just those in reform or whatever, it's politicians across the board are saying we've got to do it. And the reason, and this is the reason, is not so much that we can send people back now.
Yes.
But it's the scope there is at the moment in law for them to appeal where they're being removed to or why they're being removed.
But Starmer is
so long as that obtains, then I'm afraid the ECHR will always trump anything that we decide here. And our courts have said, our courts have also said, our judges have said that there's no question that they will take account of anything that the European Court says.
What about this thing about they've just launched saying that if people want to appeal, they'll have to appeal from where we deport them to? That sounded like another contract to me, is it?
Well, it's exactly the sort of thing that I was alluding to earlier. You know, let's propose something that is going to give the impression of action, but in fact, it's doing nothing. What they're, I mean, if you look at who they're proposing to remove, it's not boats, it's not those coming across illegally. You know, they're talking about people going through the courts and being removed at the end of their case when found guilty. And that, I mean, whoever it is will still have the right of appeal against removal. The government suggests that they won't. But the fact is that people are going to be sent back and appeal afterwards. It's a small group of people, and it's not going to send any messages at all to those coming across the channel in boats illegally.
Okay, I'm talking to Alp Mehmet. He's from Migration Watch. We'll talk more about his background in a moment, and we're talking at the moment about the small boats. We are going to talk about legal immigration as well. I'm going to ask Alp as well, what's his solution doesn't seem that impressed so far by Keir Starmer. Look, you and I are old enough to remember, and I remember your predecessor, Lord Green, talking about this. Does the fault for this go all the way back to the Tony Blair years? And is there an echo of that with Starmer when Mandelson said we wanted to rub people's noses in diversity? I mean, are they just hell bent on changing what Britain is? Is that what it's really about? Because a lot of the conspiracy theories talk about, you know, in the extremes of population or replacement and the rest of it. Do you buy into any of that? Is that what's going on?
Well, let's pick that apart a bit.
Go on, then.
First of all, Blair, Mandelson, all that 25 years ago, what, 28 years ago now, when they first came into office. Wow. Later on, when they sort of opened the floodgates to Eastern European migration from the outset with enlargement in 2004, that had more to do with legal migration.
Yeah.
Illegal migration has long taken place, as you know. I seem to remember talking about it with you in the early hours when you were doing something on Talk Sport, I think.
Yeah.
And that,
When I was a
well
boy.
remember talking about illegals in lorries and
Yeah.
the rest of it. Those coming in boats, they started coming in 2018. A few came early on in 2018, and then a few more started arriving from about October 2018. By the end of the year, there were 299 had come. And at that time, Sajid Javid, who was Home Secretary, he declared an emergency and came back off holiday to deal with it.
Sure.
But he came back to deal with it and did nothing, really. And I warned time and time again at the time, unless this problem is gripped, more and more are going to be coming, because once here, it seems that they are here to stay.
So now,
and that
hang on
was
a minute. So
that
now
was
there's
Sajid Javid.
50,000.
Sorry?
So now there's 50,000 in. Starmer's in Tuscany or wherever he's gone. He wanted to go somewhere hot for his holiday with his family. Should he be breaking his holiday and coming back? Should we be declaring a state of emergency? 50,000 and rising, Alp Mehmet.
I don't think so. I think that the least and the less he has to do with this, unless he's involved with the whole problem, the better. Because every time he and Yvette Cooper put their heads together, talk to a few people, come up with a scheme, the likelihood is that it's going to encourage people, because you can see straight away, if you know anything about this issue, if you know anything about immigration, illegal or otherwise, you know that any plan that is put in place, you know whether it's going to have any impact or not. And it's very clear from the outset, whatever they say, that it's not going to have any desirable effect, which means the message to the traffickers, to the smugglers, to the gangs, and to the migrants themselves is, don't worry, just keep coming. So in a way, no, I don't want him to come back, because whatever he does will only encourage more people to come across illegally.
That's a bit of a depressing thought. In a minute, Alp, we'll go on and talk about legal immigration as well. But just keep on the boats for a moment then. So I'm making you in charge now, not just the Home Office. You can be the Prime Minister. How do we solve the problem?
Very easy. Really very easy. First of all, we've got, as soon as possible, to hand in our notice to quit the ECHR. And that's dead easy. The treaty, the convention allows for people to pull out on 6 months' notice.
Okay.
So that's
Simple.
the first thing. Is when the government is back and the cabinet is meeting, that's what they should discuss. Right. What point do we resile from the ECHR?
Yes. Fine.
Secondly, we start creating more detention space. We've run out, really, and that's partly the fault of the Tories, I have to say.
Sure.
Detention accommodation, we haven't got enough beds. The way the rules are now, you can also only hold on to people for a limited time once they've come across and they've applied for asylum. So resolve from the ECHR, build more detention space. Then we take the next step is anyone arriving illegally, anyone and everyone is detained and then quickly removed.
When you say, I just want to check one thing. When you say detain and we need more beds, you mean get them out of hotels? You mean old army camps, put them in tents, maybe like they do in France, as they do in other countries?
In secure accommodation. I don't want people to be plonked into camps in Essex or around the country and then given the freedom to waft around in the locality with £50 a week pocket money. And let's bear in mind that we're talking about young men, young, strong men.
And we see the evidence of what can happen.
Sorry?
We see the evidence of what can happen with some of those young men now, with the allegations of rape in Nuneaton and in Epping, etc. That doesn't mean, of course, that everyone who comes in is a potential rapist, but it is patently stupid that they can stay in a hotel and then walk into town, or even worse, in my opinion, put them in homes of multiple occupation and not tell local residents that they're there. I mean, for example, the guy who's accused in Nuneaton, he's in a HMO. The other guy who's accused, he was in a HMO in the other road. Nobody in Nuneaton knew. And now look what's happened, or is alleged to have happened.
Well, I mean, all this, of course, that is something that the government is well aware of, but is not prepared to do anything about it.
Well, that's shocking.
That is shocking. And what I would also say is that those who are coming across the channel, nearly all of them, 98% of them have no documents. We have no idea who these people are. No. They arrive, they say, I'm Joe Bloggs and I'm from wherever in the Middle East, in sub-Saharan Africa, from South Asia, wherever it is, Sudan. The moment they say that and then go on to claim asylum, that's it. We hold on to them. There are so many of them, frankly, so there is very little opportunity to go into them in any depth once they are taken to Manston, which is where they usually go. And then within 24 hours, they're removed into other accommodation.
Well, we saw them going into Canary Wharf hotels. Yeah. So when you say, I like your plan, but when you say we detain them immediately, so I'm in a rubber dinghy. I'm arriving at Dover. Border Force pick me up. Or it gets worse than that, doesn't it? Because now they're getting picked up in the middle of the channel as soon as they enter our territorial waters. Then they're brought in on a lifeboat or a cutter into Dover. Then they're put on a coach. Where do they go? And I know that at the moment they go to Manston, as you said, Manton, as you say. But where would they go after that in your plan? Back on another boat, straight back?
No, they don't go. They go into secure accommodation and they go into whatever is built, and they're held there. Okay, they're held there in secure circumstances, secure situation where they can't move around. They remain on the camp.
And do you believe this would actually act as a deterrent? I mean, I was going to bring up Greece.
You bet it will.
Evidently, Greece have stopped people coming to the islands. within 2 weeks. President Trump was bragging yesterday he's cut illegal migration by 95%. So
Yeah,
if there's a will, there's a way, is there?
look, if people arrive and then they know they're not going to get any further,
Sure.
they will stop coming.
Well,
Simple.
why? Hold on then. So why doesn't Starmer know that? Why doesn't Yvette Cooper know that? They obviously do. So why aren't they bloody doing it? I'm getting frustrated now.
The Starmer and Cooper won't do it. They would argue because they can't. The rules and arrangements and
Sure.
the whole framework of the process is such. And given our sort of obligations and commitments to international arrangements that we've freely entered into, they can't do that. And this is what migrants and the traffickers know,
Right.
that as things stand, as the law now stands, there's nothing that Starmer and Cooper can do about it. But what they can do is detain people.
Sure.
John, I was an immigration officer 50 years ago in the 70s. I spent 10 years working at Dover.
Sure.
There were one of our sort of confidence measures or feelings of being confident that we were safe was the fact that we had lots of water around us. We were an island.
Yeah. So
And that was always it. And as you mentioned when we were talking earlier, the boats weren't there, but lorries were.
Yeah.
And people were coming in. And in fact, I picked out, unwittingly, I have to say, one of the first to come in the back of a car, in the boot of a car, in a big Opel from Germany, where there was an Indian in the boot. I wasn't aware really that was going on, but I wasn't happy with the young driver. So I referred him to a point where, with cars when they arrived, if we wanted to question them, there was a compound that we directed them to, and someone would talk to the individual in detail. Well, whilst my colleague was talking to the young driver, a young German driver, all of a sudden a Sikh chap turned up and they said, where did you come from? And it turned out that he was in the boot of the car. So I got lots of plaudits for being clever enough to identify this lad in the back of a boot. But in fact, it was, I admit, by accident.
Okay. Do you feel that we may well have let our enemy in, some terrorists in among these people?
For
Certainly,
sure.
we've brought
For
in
sure.
criminals, haven't we?
For sure. I mean, we know every time someone is picked up for having committed a crime, and it turns out that they came in pretending to be minors, or they, for one reason or other, they appealed against removal, saying that they'd changed religion and they would now become victims. One after the other, you see people. There was young Roberts, aspiring Marine, who was murdered by the guy who came over illegally, who'd already murdered 2 people, and he'd been done for drugs in Italy, and he ended up with us. And that's where I think that, in addition to new measures, I think we also have to go back to scrutinizing more closely people who want to come here when they apply for visas, when they're coming in as students. We know now that many youngsters who come over here to study, at the point where they're supposed to leave, they suddenly find a reason for claiming asylum. This sort of thing has got to stop. And as I said, Rwanda wasn't a silver bullet, but it was part of the answer. And also part of the answer is actually being out there in the way that we used to be and no longer are, where people who want to come to this country apply for a visa first. And that, if we want to say, apply for an asylum visa, well, that's something maybe we should consider. But there's no question of anyone who arrives here illegally then being able to claim asylum. And even the government has now acknowledged that this is so. The one in, one out scheme involves an element of determining who is likely to succeed with an application for asylum. So, all these things, there are lots of things. I've mentioned the main ones that I think we need to plan
Let
for.
me ask you a direct question. You've been asked it before or been accused of it. Are you a racist? Are you against immigrants?
Well, I am an immigrant.
Yeah.
I'm a first generation immigrant. I'm no, do you know, John, we get hundreds of people who are migrants who are here, the resident here, but they've come here legally and they're here and they say that what is going on, all these people coming in illegally and then being allowed to stay, it's not fair and it's costly. Do you know, every one of those who comes in illegally, while they wait for their appeals and their applications to be processed, it takes £40,000 is spent on them.
Mm.
If the 50,000 or so who will arrive this year, that's 2 million quid for a year. Sorry, 2 billion quid for a year. I mean, that is a nonsense. That is unfair on those who've done it legally and unfair on the British taxpayer who's footing the bill.
Now, before you go, let's talk about legal migration. Is that out of control? Do we need quotas there? Do we need numbers there? What's Migration Watch's and your point of view on that?
It's totally out of control. The government seems to be patting itself on the back that net migration is half what it was 2-3 years ago. Well, the fact is that net migration, even at the sort of 450,000 a year that we now supposedly have, even that, all it's doing is adding millions to our population over a few years. In the 2001 census, we had a population certain level. 20 years later, in 2021, the latest census, we found that there was an increase in our population of 8 million people. 7 million of that was pretty much due to immigration, migrants and children born to them. We only heard a few weeks ago that in the year to end June 2024, 700,000 people had been added to our population. Every single local authority except for one had an increase in its population. Our population at the moment is increasing really exponentially, entirely due to immigration. Now, that has all sorts of implications. Of course, there are economic ones. There are economic implications. There are bound to be for our transport system, for our education system, you name it, housing in particular. You've got a roof. You have a roof over the heads of people who are here, whatever their circumstances. It's absolutely batty that we are willingly, knowingly allowing ourselves down this road of exponential population increase because of immigration. One other thing, if I may, John, to add to that, in 1991, the census then showed that the population of England and Wales, that 95% of it was white British, was indigenous, was whatever you care to call it. In 2021, the 95% had fallen to 75%, and the ethnic minority proportion had increased to 25%. So quintupled in 30 years. If we continue at this rate, then by roughly, I don't know, mid 2050s to mid 2060s, in that sort of time frame, the parity, the point at which ethnic minorities are 50% of the population will have been reached.
But the government would say...
Have you been asked about this? Have your listeners been asked about this?
No.
Do we want this? Does anyone here want it?
Well, the government says...
No.
Yeah, but the government and the political class say diversity is our strength. And it also says that we've got a declining birth population from amongst the, as you class them, the people like me, the indigenous white population. Our birth rate's going down, that we need immigrants. We need them to pay our pensions. This is their story. We need them, and that diversity has been a strength. What do you say to that?
I say, with respect, John, that's total baloney. Look, let's be clear. First of all, on bringing in lots of young migrants, to work, pay taxes, and really pay to have old age pensioners like me looked after. And
to create babies, new babies.
However, that aside, however, what I would also say is, look at me. I'm coming up to 77 in a couple of weeks. I arrived here as an 8-year-old in 1956. And here I am, in my dotage. What you're doing by bringing in lots of young people in order to address that sort of age gap is storing up more and more problems in the future. And we've been saying that for years. What you don't also say is that the population, actually, is it such a bad thing that our population is not increasing at the rate that it is now? All right, older people, we all get old and we all die. It doesn't mean that population, that people will stop being born. We will continue. Now around 1.5 kids per woman. So there is young people. If we were to encourage young people, actually, and create the circumstances which makes them want to have children,
and bigger
in the
families,
way that our parents were encouraged, really, in many respects, after the war in the 50s.
The boomers.
You encourage young people really to have families. We've got to do that. Bringing in people who are themselves going to grow old, who are themselves. And one thing with it seems, and I'm told by eminent demographers, that after a while, migrants too tend to fall in line with whatever the prevailing birth rate is. So whilst initially, and certainly this is what's happening at the moment, that non-UK born mothers are having more children, and there were many more births of non-UK mothers than there are of UK-born mothers. That eventually redresses the balance, or
Sure.
comes into balance. I don't see any problem in our population actually shrinking gradually by a little every year, rather than growing exponentially in a way where we can't actually cope, we can't provide.
All right. So just before I let you go,
Sorry,
oh, go
John,
on.
but very important. Diversity is our strength. No, diversity, the sort of diversity we've got now, it's, bless you,
Excuse
hyper
me. Thank you. Hay
hyper
fever. Come on.
yeah,
I
me
want you
too.
to say this line without my
Hypersensitivity,
sneeze going over the top of it. Say it again.
hyper diversity is a weakness. We're importing divisions.
Okay.
We are, not only have we imported divisions, but as a result of the multiculturalism nonsense, really, which was an accident and then suddenly became something that we had to explain away. And this
Yeah.
is where Mandelson and Blair, I think, are to blame. Suddenly, we encourage people to think that diversity was wonderful. It was a strength, and multiculturalism was a strength. No, no, no. I think what is happening now with our regard to our culture, our history, the way it's being denigrated, it's being undermined. We are removing semblance of our history, the sort of history that made this country the great country that it was, and is becoming less so now, without saying that it's no longer great. It is a great country.
But you know as well as I do that, the slavery debate always comes up, doesn't it?
Well, it does. It does, and it's wrong. And the reason why it comes up, because the leaves of power, the positions of authority, are now held by everyone who feels that way, who believed that this society was founded on very bad values. It had no values. It was evil.
Yeah.
Why are we now talking about reparations and slavery? Slavery, which allegedly created our wealth. It didn't. It did not. It was a fraction of our economy.
Yeah.
It was the Industrial Revolution, which we exported to the whole world and everyone benefited from. That's what created the wealth of this country, and created wealth which we largely spent on fighting for freedom and fighting for what this country stood for in the two world wars. Since then, it isn't migrants that have they've contributed, certainly, but it isn't those who came in the early 50s. It's not the Windrush generation of migrant, of Commonwealth immigrant, that created the wealth that rebuilt Britain after the war. No, no, no. It was Tommy and Brenda and Hamish from Hamilton and Bryn
Or
from
Paddy from
Cardiff
Ireland.
and Paddy from Ireland, I was going to say. They were the ones who rebuilt this country in the 50s and 60s. And the rest of the world, the poor world, because they wanted a bit of the wealth that we'd created, they wanted a bit of it, we brought them over.
That's powerful, very powerful what you're saying, extremely powerful. So, but I just to finish the interview, well, it's more of a chat, isn't it? I'd like to finish it just by asking, give me some Boris Sunny uplands, some idea of, you're, as you say, you're in your dotage. I'm getting on now as well. Is there any prospect of light at the end of this very, very dark tunnel?
Well, I hope so, John, because as you've mentioned, and I've mentioned, I'm an immigrant. I came here as a first generation migrant in 1956. Didn't speak the language. My parents, my father arrived a bit earlier. There were quite a few
You were
Commonwealth
from
migrants
Cyprus,
who
weren't
came
you? Tell
that way.
people where you were from.
I'm from Cyprus. I was born in
Cyprus, yeah.
Cyprus, but I left Cyprus when Cyprus was still British.
Yes.
So technically I am a migrant, but in fact I was moving from one bit of the empire to another.
Sure.
And that, what I would like to do is give hope to all youngsters now. And that hope is that we, first of all, we address the problem of uncontrolled runaway immigration, legal and illegal.
Yeah.
We stop it, we cap it. We don't stop immigration like that, and anyone who we need can't come here. But what I would like to see is zero net migration, or as close to it as possible. And you can do that by applying caps to the main routes, to students, to those coming here for work, and those who are coming here for family and other reasons. You can cap that and do that over a prolonged, protracted period. That will serve the purpose of certainly reducing the rate of growth of immigration, which is out of control. I would also really stop this nonsense that if you're foreign and you come here and you apply for asylum, somehow your rights are ahead of, they are more important than the rights of the
settled
British
community.
people who are paying for it all, paying through the nose.
So do you understand why those women in Nuneaton, in Epping, Manchester, Liverpool are protesting about the migrant hotels? It's actually more than the hotels, isn't it? It's a sense of they're not being listened to by the political class. Is it?
Yeah. John, I was asked the other day what Migration Watch did and how we started off.
Yeah.
And this was, I mean, in a way, we're the daddy of them all. We
Yeah.
were saying things in 2001, 2002 that no
I
one else
remember.
dared, and we were castigated for doing so. But we made what we thought were very sensible proposals. And there was a period when, believe it or not, when Theresa May was Home Secretary, when actually the sort of measures that we were proposing did have some effect. Net migration was coming down. Now, we've moved beyond that now. Immigration is now totally out of control because the government won't listen.
Sure.
It won't ask. And what I said the other day was one of the things that Migration Watch did 20 years ago was that actually ask people what they thought, how they felt, what was their reaction to. And they told us. We asked them what they would like to be done. They told us. We took heed. This is what no government in recent years has done. And that's what's got to change, that our governments have got to start listening. And Keir Starmer, who in May, in introducing the white paper that's going to be designed to address legal migration, it won't. I mean, nothing will happen, but that's another story. He referred to controlling immigration for fear of becoming an island of strangers.
Oh, yeah.
The Prime Minister said that. Now, he says, oh, no, I regret saying that.
I never read the script, he said.
Well, maybe, but I'd like to believe that that was probably, that may have been one of the occasions when he was actually telling us what was on his mind and what the truth was. And that is so. I mean, it's manifestly obvious that
Yeah.
continuing at the rate we're going to become an island full of strangers with communities, isolated communities, some of them really in conflict with themselves. That is what is going on. They are the risks. It's the risks to cohesion. It's the tensions that are building up, that are fracturing our society. We've got to have something to unite around, and that's our history and culture. That's the way it happened. That's being rubbished and being replaced by this and that and diversity. That's nonsense. It bodes well for those who want this country changed out of all recognition, if not destroyed.
And on that sobering thought, we'll end. Alp Mehmet, thank you very much indeed for joining me from Migration Watch. I think that was absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. What did you make of that? Please put your comments on the bottom of the video. We'll talk about it in the live show later, all the live shows. He's a brilliant, brilliant guest, isn't he? The bit at the end there about diversity not being our strength and the island of strangers, I think all of that we've got to take on board. Don't you? No matter where we come from, no matter how long our parents were in this country or our grandparents. I believe in Great Britain. I love our country. I love our flag and I love our tradition and our culture and our history. More of us have got to speak up, defend it, respect it, and want more of it. Are you with me or against me? Until we talk again, if you've got kids, give them a kiss, give them a hug. Don't forget to tell them you love them. You've been listening to and watching Jon Gaunt. Thank you.